The readings appointed for this Sunday talk about a lot of different things, but they all sort of come back to this image of light. And so in the music, we will be picking up on that image. And you might pay a special attention to the words and the hymns and the anthems and for the recurrence of that image that comes through them. At the beginning of the service, we will sing Awake My Soul and With the Sun, obviously our largest source of light. And this is a really very uplifting hymn that we will start the service off with. At the sequence, we will sing I Want to Walk as a Child of the Light, which is very familiar to congregations. That text and tune has a little bit of an interesting backstory with it. Kathleen Thomerson, who was a musician in St. Louis, wrote both the words and the music, and she wrote them simultaneously. There was a certain summer back in the 60s when in St. Louis there was an airline strike and a heat wave. Her mother had been visiting her from where Kathleen Thomerson grew up in Houston. And finally, without the recourse of having a flight back to Houston, Kathleen Thomerson decided to do a road trip. And so they packed up, and it was the first time in many years that Kathleen Thomerson had been back to her home in Houston. And as she was packing, and then while she was driving all the way down to Houston, she worked out the words and the music in sort of anticipation for being back at her home, and especially back at Church of the Redeemer, which is the Episcopal church where she grew up. It has really a tender backstory, and if you think about some of those ideas of coming home, that fits not only the lectionary readings, but it also really fits very carefully. It changes kind of how you sing the hymn. At the offertory, the choir will be singing one of Ralph Vaughan Williams' most popular anthems, Oh How Amiable. This is a setting of words from both Psalm 84 and Psalm 90. And so that those very familiar words, oh, how amiable are your dwellings, Lord. And Vaughan Williams has this beautiful way of starting off with a very placid, gentle, easygoing feel. Very gentle, and then as the psalmist talks about, my soul hath a desire and longing to enter into the courts of the Lord, and that the sparrow has found her a house, and the swallow a nest where she may lay her young. It's all very gentle. But then as the psalm intensifies, talking about coming into the altar of the Lord of hosts, the music continues to gain in intensity. And all through the anthem, there are sections that happen, and each section builds in both volume and intensity until finally there's this great climax that builds up. And he introduces St. Anne, that very familiar hymn tune, O God, our help in ages past. And that's sort of the crowning moment for this very exciting anthem. It's interesting to note that while I said this is probably Vaughan Williams' most popular anthem, it wasn't originally considered or conceived for organ or church use. It was actually written for an outdoor pageant, and the original orchestration was for a brass band, and it was entirely sung outdoors by a large massed choir, which accounts for some of why some of the vocal lines are a little bit on the easier side. But again, it's endured as one of his most beloved tunes. And then at the communion, we will be singing a piece by Leo Sowerby. Leo Sowerby was working in the mid-century, and he has very much that mid-century modern aesthetic. And he was working in Chicago. He was the musician at St. James Cathedral there. And so like a lot of mid-century sort of beat poet era, the harmonies in Sowerby's music is very, very rich. So this Eternal Light starts off with this really sumptuous harmony. You'll also hear those harmonies at the prelude. The organ voluntary that begins the service is also a piece by Leo Sowerby. It's a chorale prelude on a tune that was in the 1940 hymnal but didn't make the cut for the 1982 hymnal. So it's not a melody that we sing, but you can hear some of those same melodies on the organ with a lush string accompaniment and a clarinet singing the melody. So a lot of great music to lighten your day, and we hope that you will worship with us here at St. John's this weekend.